Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the main event of the evening. 60 minutes of football fun and banter with Chris and Leicester Till I Die TV. Are you ready? Let's get ready to rumble.
Strap yourself in,
because we're set up, switched on, and ready to go.
Listen on your favourite podcast platform or ask your smart speaker to play the podcast Leicester Till I Die.
Subscribe, like, follow and join in now.
This is your host, Chris.
No! God, please, no! No!
I know, I'm sorry, but he's cheap and available.
How rude.
Right, Chris.
Good evening, always cheap, always available. That's me. And bear with me. We've had a little bit of fun. I've had a little bit of fun this evening. Just as I was about to come live, my computer decided that it wanted to update my Windows. So I had to wait for all that to go through. And I'm on a new system, new camera and everything. And so anything could happen in the next half hour, as they say. But it is January. It is the new year. It can only mean one thing. Yes, the transfer window. And of course, the transfer windows for Leicester City only mean one thing, and that is that we're going to lose most of the team and end up with a five-a-side team at the end of it, if we believe all the gossip that is on the internet. Now, there's very few people that we trust when it comes to Leicester City rumours and gossip. Well, not gossip, but news, etc. And I'm pleased to say we've got one of those people on the show with us tonight. We've had him on before. You know him very well. And if you're not subscribed to The Athletic, get your ass over there and subscribe now. It's £1 a month for the first, I think it's 6 months. Great deal, great read. Keeps you updated. And this is the gentleman who writes for Leicester City for that particular erstwhile publication, Mr. Rob Tanner. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Chris. Good evening, everybody.
And Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year to you as well.
Yeah. Of course, the question is going to be, is it going to be a Happy New Year for Leicester City?
Well, we'll have to see. I mean, obviously, this is the first January transfer window where they're definitely trying to do some business. I know historically they never have really fancied doing much business in January because they don't believe there's a lot of value to be had in the market. They think that there's no availability, and the players that are available, they'll come at inflated prices. In the past, they've always held the view that it's the desperate that do a lot of business in the January window, but they find themselves in that situation now where they've got to do it because they didn't do anything in the summer. So only Wout Faes come in. So they've got to do some business because this squad desperately needs some reinforcements.
Are we now in that desperate category? I'd probably say we're not. We are.
Yeah, well, Forest at the weekend, and I know a lot of Forest fans are licking their lips saying, well, if we beat you, we go above you. So it's getting to that stage now. I think they need the business in. I think Brendan's getting a little bit frustrated. I was at the press conference today at Seagrave. I get the impression, he is getting a little bit frustrated because there's nothing imminent at the moment. He says there's a lot of hard work going on behind the scenes, but there's nothing really cast iron for incomings at the moment. There's obviously a lot of names that have been bandied about. Some have got some genuine link to Leicester. Victor Christiansen is an option they're looking at, but there's no deal been struck yet for him, the 20-year-old Danish under 21 left back. So, but they also want a centre back and a right winger. So I think the right winger is going to be proving to be expensive. And the way Brendan's been talking the last couple of press conferences, whereas before he would seem quite positive about being backed and having the finances to do it, he's tailing back a little bit on that now. He's talking about there's not a lot of money, but there is some money to do, and they've got a wheeling deal to try and get it done. But I know he needs to create room. I know he mentioned in one press conference, it caused a bit of a stir with the fans when he said that it's a small squad. Well, it's a full squad. So he's got to make room for any newcomers as well. It's regulation size squad. It's the Premier League squad. So he's got to make some room. And from what he's told us, there's no bids or offers or anything for any of his players at the moment. So it almost feels like a bit like the summer. It's frozen.
I mean, I do a column for the BBC on Tuesdays, and I've written that this is probably not a crossroads for us, but this is probably one of the most, if not the most important transfer window in modern times, because we have to get this one right. Because let's face it, we are in a relegation battle. Like it or lump it, we can't deny we're 2 points off the bottom three. And when you see performances, okay, the performance against Fulham was better, but when you see score lines, like, and how much longer can we go on saying, oh, we were unlucky against Liverpool, and we should have won against Fulham? Could have, would have, should have will just lead to the Championship.
Well, it's that fatal combination, isn't it, of making mistakes defensively and not taking your chances at the other end. I mean, they have created chances. You're right, against Liverpool and Fulham, they had some great chances. Unfortunately, the strikers at the moment are misfiring a little bit. I mean, Patson's gone a number of games now without a goal. Vardy's only got 4 for the season. I think 3 of them come in the Carabao Cup. So, Kelechi come on, hardly played this season. I think he's only started 3 games and he scored at the winner. A usual feeling, wasn't it, watching Kelechi score a winner in an FA Cup tie? I mean, that puts him 3rd in the all-time list of goal scorers in the FA Cup for the club. So he always seems to do it in the Cup, but we don't see it so much in the league. So there's a little issue there. I mean, obviously without James Maddison as well, who's been scoring the lion's share of goals and providing the lion's share of assists as well. And we've got no return date for him, which is a worry. I'd say they're taking it day by day, see if he can improve with his knee injury, but still no closer. In fact, it's the same squad that went to Gillingham that's going to Newcastle tomorrow night for the quarterfinal of the Carabao Cup. So, I mean, they'll find a bit of a difference taking on Newcastle than they did Gillingham.
Yeah. I'm not going to say I'm a conspiracy theorist, but it would be interesting to see if James Maddison suddenly comes back to full fitness on the 1st of February.
No, I don't think they want to sell him at all in the January window. I think they would resist all offers. I think Leicester fans are going to have to prepare themselves that he is most likely going to go in the summer. And I know you said that this is probably the most important window that in recent history for the club. Next summer is going to be huge with the amount of players that are out of contract, the players that Brendan wanted to get rid of in the last window and couldn't. So there's going to be a big upheaval. It's going to be a lot of work for the head of recruitment, Martin Glover, next summer. I think at the moment, this is a holding window. You've got to get the players in that are just going to steady the ship a little bit, provide that little bit of backup and support. I mean, Brendan was saying he wants starters. He wants people to come in and ready to go, which makes some of the names they're linked with that a bit strange. They don't really fit the bill. A lot of them, they're very young and they have not the experience of the Premier League, so they might need a little bit of time to adjust, like Samari and Daka have. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
I mean, we are the club, and I mentioned this again in my blog, but, we are the club that everybody was sort of saying, this is how we should be run. This is the blueprint for how a good club is run. It's now like it's being run like a 3-wheel bus with no driver at times. And you just think, and I know the good times make the bad times look even worse. But I just think, like, are we? I just don't know where it's all going wrong. I mean, we're all right. We had no, Martin Glover wasn't with us during the summer. He is now. But I'm just wondering, is there money? And it's no good having all these people in place. And we've now got Martin Glover, who's experienced, etc. But is there money to spend?
Yes, they've secured 2 loans from Aquarius Bank, the Australian bank they do a lot of business with. They've secured the second and third instalments of the Fofana money up front, and they'll pay them back when that comes through from Chelsea, primarily to help them in this window, because I think there's an acknowledgement that they couldn't help Brendan in the last window when he was crying out for a refresh of the squad. But I don't think they'll use, I mean, there's £46 million, but they won't use that all in this window. They'll save a big chunk of that back for the summer. There's a lot of work to be done. And then I think they'll probably sell Maddison. And if you can get 60, 70 million for him, although he'll be going into the last year of his contract, which weakens their position in some respects. So, I have to see how much they get. I mean, there could be a war chest of about 80 million if that all goes to plan. If they can move on some of the others as well, to create a little bit more finances, then have a real stab at that squad. I mean, they're probably going to need. I think Martin Evans might sign new contracts. Söyüncü won't. Been told that he's adamant he wants to go. So I think there could be 4 players, 5 players leaving at the end of their contracts, and they've got to be replaced. And that's going to be the bigger window. But there is a little bit of money at the moment. I mean, that was the whole problem last summer. They had to get rid of some players to free up the finances to then be able to bring recruits in. They couldn't. I know they tried to do a deal with Fulham for Yannick Vestergaard, about £10 million. He turned that down. Didn't want to leave. Wanted to stay and fight for his place at Leicester. That hasn't really worked out at all. I mean, I can't remember a signing that's been so disappointing in so many ways. I looked at him at the time and I thought he doesn't fit the profile that Brendan wants from a defender. He likes them to press into midfield, engage, be aggressive, be able to defend space, have lots of pace as well to recover and to defend that space. One-on-ones like Fofana. Söyüncü, when he was at the top of his game and in the Premier League team of the season, did it. But he signed Vestergaard, and apparently it was Brendan's pick. I mean, he'd been after him for 18 months, apparently, I was told. That, and then finally got him, and just the wrong fit. I don't think he's a bad player. He's just the wrong fit for Leicester. I thought he did all right at Gillingham, although that's a side that only scored 7 goals all season.
I mean, we're talking about Söyüncü there. You can't blame the guy. I mean, apparently we want him to sign another contract, whether that's A, so we can get more money for him, or B, because we're in such a position at the moment with our defence. But you cannot blame the guy for going like up your sort of thing, I mean. And it's funny that a club that are sort of in the bottom reaches of the Premier League he's not good enough for, and yet one of the best defensive teams in Europe, who are constant semi-finalists in the Champions League, allegedly are after him.
Well, what gets me a little bit about this situation, you said about, they will always used to have the blueprints of how clubs used to be run, should be run. And I know for a fact that the Leeds ownership a couple of years ago were looking at Leicester as the model. COVID then come along and that changed a lot of things, but there has been mistakes made. And I think Brendan would have to hold up his hands as well and say that he's mismanaged a few players, like Söyüncü. I mean, he's just cast him out in the cold. He's made comments at press conferences about a lack of effort on the training ground, which is unforgivable. I mean, I have to say, when he's been in the side, I haven't seen a lack of effort or a lack of commitment. He looked very committed at Gillingham at the weekend, but we don't see him very often. But obviously, if he's looking at the situation and there's so many injuries, yet he still can't get into the Premier League side. I mean, Welford Ndidi will be used at centre back ahead of him at the moment. If they play a back three, it'll be Castagna on the right, I'm sure. So he's miles away. He's absolutely right to look at his own future and think, and I think you're right. Leicester would like him to sign that contract to see if they can get a bit more money for him, but he's in a strong position himself now. I mean, his contract's running down, 6 months to go. You can do whatever. You can sign with an overseas club now. You can sign a pre-agreement.
Do you think we're used to stubborn managers? We had Nigel Pearson, for God's sake, and I never thought they'd come much more stubborn than him. But I don't think Brendan. I think he's setting a new height for managers everywhere. He seems to, and I know managers. It's a thin line between favourites and saying, well, it's the best squad I've got. But like you've said, then for me, it comes across as, I'm sorry, I'm not going to play you, whatever. Because I'd sooner play this guy, even though he's not a Marty. And don't get me wrong, he was my most improved player last season. But when I look at Soyuncu and I look at Marty, I know who I'd sooner have in the back line.
Yeah. I mean,
he has too many favourites.
I mean, it's interesting the Soyuncu situation because when Brendan came in, he was the fourth choice centre back. I remember his first season. He didn't play that often. When he did, he just wanted to look like he wanted to win every ball and compete for every ball. And he was making mistakes. He was committing himself. He was getting rolled. People were getting past him. That's why he wasn't playing. And then Brendan come in and put him in the side alongside Johnny Evans, and suddenly he looked like a world beater. And then he had that disastrous Euros campaign with Turkey when there was a lot of pressure on him. A hell of a lot of pressure domestically in Turkey. He was seen as the guy that was going to lead the side and be a focal point. They actually went in the tournament with the best defensive record in qualifying, but they had a disaster, and he's just not been the same player since. But I think you have to also look as well and wonder whether Brendan has managed that situation particularly well. I mean, when you're saying you've got a small squad, then you've got to keep everybody on side because they've all got to contribute at some stage, especially with the injury record that we've seen over the last couple of years, which unheard of before. Pre-COVID, it was unheard of that Leicester would have so many soft muscle tissue injuries and stuff like that. But the scheduling and the demands on the players at the moment are so high, and he has to keep going back because he doesn't believe in some of these players in the squad. He keeps going back to the same players and playing them game after game after game, and sooner or later they blow up. I mean, Soyuncu is a classic example himself because of all the injuries he had with Fofana and everything that started last season. I think Soyuncu played all 24 of the first opening games in all competitions, and then had that hamstring injury and then hardly featured when he come back after that. And that seemed to be the end of him, really. But he was asked, to go through the mill for him at the time.
Yeah,
I see that in fairness. Is training too intense? The amount of injuries are ridiculous. I think you'd have to question that. I mean, at the moment, no, because the games are coming so thick and fast. There's no time to do a lot of work on the training ground. It's all about recovery and just getting the little fine details for the next fixture. So there's not a lot of really hard work being done at Seagrave at the moment. But I think the way Brendan trains, they're very short, sharp sessions, and they're very physical. They train how they play at the pace. They train at gameplay pace, which is very different to Claude Puel, who had long tactical sessions, double sessions, morning and afternoon. There was a lot of standing around. I think the players got a bit bored. Brendan likes to get him in, get him out, get him worked, get him back in as well, and then rest and recovery. That could be an element, but the club they've changed their medical staff. They've had a look at different things. The level of detail is remarkable at Seagrave in terms of how they test the pitches, what sort of pitches they use for training. Depends on who's training. Vardy likes a hard pitch for pace. That's how he likes to train. Johnny Evans probably needs a softer surface to train on because of his injury history. All these level of interest. They go out and they test it with an impactor that tests the density of the ground, the firmness of it, the pressure. It's remarkable the level that detail that goes in. But you look at them, how many clubs have actually got. Chelsea got a terrible injury list. Liverpool got a terrible injury list. These are the sides that play a lot of intense football. Liverpool play an incredibly intense game, don't they? The press, and they're starting to get loads of injuries.
Yeah.
I think when the games are coming, you're going to get injuries.
They are, and obviously this season it's worse with the World Cup, obviously, because everything's been compacted, more games in a smaller space of time. But it's just, I've never known it like this at Leicester, apart from probably last season. It seemed to be getting worse. And Fofana made he commented when he came about how intense the training was. I'm sat here listening to you, and you're making some very good points. But if I just tuned in, I'd be thinking I was checking into a horse channel. Soft ground or hard ground.
Yeah.
I mean, whether they train on a soft ground or a hard ground, surely when we go out, it doesn't. We go out to play on a pitch. We've got to play on whatever it is. And are we now going to be in a position where we're picking players on? We've been out, tested the pitch. It's a hard pitch. So Evans, you're not in the starting lineup, but Vardy, you are.
No, the training pitches. It's just so they prevent injuries in training. That's the idea. And a lot of the injuries that we've seen have come in games. I was at the behind closed game with Toir at Seagrave when Johnny Evans came off after 10 minutes with a calf injury. This is the other calf to the one that he had before. And that was just through the game. And then obviously we saw a disastrous game with KDH came off in the warm-up. Then Samari limped off after 6 or 7 minutes. Neither of them are... KDH could be back on Friday training in view of the Forest game. Samari's a good 4 to 5 weeks away still. So, these things just seem to be happening in the games at the moment.
Top was very much after the summer. I think it came across to me that he felt guilty that he wasn't able to back Brendan in the summer. And I think, I don't know if I've said to you before, I think I may have done that. I think if Top had come out before the season started and explained what the situation was with the fair play rules, etc., I think the fans would have understood more. But leaving it until the Manchester United game to write it in his notes, we just didn't know what the hell was going on. And so I think he's felt a bit of loyalty to Brendan because he wasn't able to back him. A lot of people are saying that if Vichai was still with us, rest in peace, that Brendan would have probably gone by now. Has Brendan got the backing, do you think, of Top?
Well, it's interesting you say that. The perceptions of who was the most ruthless, was it Vichai or Top? Can you remember the phantom sacking of Nigel Pearson during the Great Escape?
Yes. My relaxing Sunday night went out the window that time.
Yeah, well, that was Top's decision initially. That was reversed by Vichai. Vichai really believed in Nigel. So he was willing to give him more time. So Top can be ruthless when he wants to, but I think he looks at what Brendan's achieved at the club. And I know there's a lot of people want him out now. I know there's a lot of fans who have had enough. But when that day comes when he does leave, you still got to look back and recognise that it has been a very successful period in the club's history. They won the FA Cup, the Community Shield, reached semi-finals of a European competition, finished 5th twice, 8th. They have punched well above their weight. In the press conference today, all the Nationals and myself will also be running an article later tonight where Brendan's talking about net spends and comparing Leicester and his net spend in his time at the club to Aston Villa, West Ham and Newcastle and what they've spent, net spend, on their squads at the time. And Leicester are nowhere near in terms of what they've been spending. It's interesting it's not so much the personal fortune of Top that's the issue, although obviously COVID dramatically impacted upon his business, on the business model of King Power. The leisure industry was hit more than any, but people weren't travelling. There was nothing. So, and his personal fortune has been affected as well. But he's still a very wealthy man. The issue has been with the finances that Leicester have been, over the last few years, have been rewarding the players with better contracts, signing players on good contracts. So the expenditure has risen and risen and risen, but the revenue level hasn't risen as well. Obviously, COVID massively impacted that. And that's why they're looking at this development at the stadium. So they can have increased revenue streams coming into the club. That would allow them then to spend more on the playing side, because it's not so much the Premier League FFP that they were concerned about. It's the UEFA one.
Yes.
I think their ratio is 85% expenditure to revenue now, which is getting very well. It's putting a big toe over the line of what UEFA want. That's why they're on the watch list now. So that's why they had to put the brakes on a little bit and go, right, okay, well, we need to have a think about we can't keep spending and then getting impacted, because if we get into Europe, which is the club's plan, was to challenge for Europe every season. I know that's a million miles away right now. That was the plan. That's what they want to do. They don't want to be falling foul of FFP rules. Even if that's just a fine, it's still a fine. It's a significant fine that would probably impact them on another transfer or any other business they want to do. So that's why they were being cautious. But I think that the problem is they've put the brakes on and everybody else has gone past them. And now they're trying to get the engine running again. And they're playing catch up. And, there's not a lot in the tank to get them going again. So, it's a frustrating one for the fans, I'm sure.
We're a victim of our own success, as they say, literally.
Yeah, there were inevitably going to be tougher times. I mean, we've been on a roller coaster over the years anyway. But in general, over the last, as long as I've been covering Leicester, which is 13 years now, it's been pretty much an upward trajectory all the way. I know we've had a few blips, but even the blips of Great Escape season turned out to be a fantastic achievement in view of where they were. And since then, I know there's been some dark times, the sacking of Claudio Ranieri, the end of the Puel period, but they've still had some fantastic success.
We have definitely. Like I say, unfortunately, that makes the dark times look even darker. But mentioning before, Martin Glover, I mean, he should have had time to settle in now. He comes with a good record. Do you think he's had time to put his plans into place?
Well, I hope so. I mean, yes. I mean, he was on gardening leave all the way through the last transfer window. He was only released to join Leicester in September. But, he's had a few months to get to know everybody, to understand what's going on. From what I understand, the plan for this window is a continuation of the last window. It's not being treated as a completely separate window. A lot of the business they would like to have done in the summer, they would like to do now. So a lot of those targets that they were scouting and assessing back then may still be considered. I mean, for example, Jeremy Boga. I mean, they tried to sign him on transfer deadline day from Atalanta. They wanted a loan. Atalanta wanted either an agreement that they had to purchase him at the end of the loan or a permanent transfer. But Leicester weren't in the position to be able to do that on the day. So they've put that on the back burner. Now, I'm sure they've got other targets as well for that right winger spot. They would probably have, they always have 1, 2, 3, top 3 of targets. I don't think he would be the number one, but nothing's off the table, I understand. So if they're struggling to get 1 and 2, they might go for Boga again. I mean, the problem you've got in this window is he's hardly played this season because he's fallen down the pecking order, ironically, behind Ademola Lookman, who Brendan wanted to sign for 14 million. But again, the money wasn't there until they made a sale. I mean, that's always been the model, hasn't it, for Leicester, to sell one key asset each summer, reinvest that. And if they reinvest it wisely, then they kick on again. And you've got perhaps a couple more assets that you can sell. They're running short of assets now. They've only got 2, Harvey and James Maddison, in my opinion, at the moment. That would bring significant funds in. Maddison probably be the next one to go, but that's always been the model. But they've discarded that a couple of years ago. They didn't sell anybody in the summer for the first time in a long time. Not been able to reinvest the money, and since then, it's been very bleak in the transfer windows. Yeah.
Looking at, before we come on to actual individual players, I mean, we know the 3 main positions: left back, centre back, and right wing. 2 positions that I just want to add on. For one I'm concerned about, which is the striker. You know, whether we need another striker. I mean, for me, I like Daka, and I think Daka is going to be the player we need. Worried that Kelechi might leave, though, because of his, he's, whatever he does, he can't get into the team as a regular starter. But I think Landis might be financial again, that we could have done with the Daka, not necessarily Daka himself, but that player to come in a season earlier while Jamie was still, reasonably firing on all cylinders, to give him, like Soyuncu, that season to settle in. Do you think we left that too late? And do we really need another striker? Because at the moment, none of our strikers are in the top 2 or 3 of our goal scorers this season.
No, it's been unusual as well, and it's not. I have to say, it's not as if they're not creating some chances for them. There have been opportunities that have been created, but I think early in the season there wasn't a lot of ammunition for them. Maddison is the key. Harvey blows hot and cold, but when he's hot, he's excellent and exciting prospects who can bring goals to the side as well. KDH, obviously, we're missing his energy at the moment, especially and that the pressing he does when they haven't got the ball high up the pitch. But Jamie just looks a little bit short at the moment. A bit of short confidence, perhaps, which you wouldn't associate with Jamie Vardy, a lack of confidence, would you? But I just think he needs a goal. He just needs one to go in off his backside or whatever and get him going again, and then he'll probably go on a little streak. I mean, I have noticed a little change in how he plays now. He doesn't quite have that. Remember when he used to give centre halves a yard and then he'd still burn them for pace? Well, now he's getting a yard on centre halves and they're catching him. So it's a different Vardy at the moment. But I do think his link-up play is quite good, and that's why I was quite pleased that Vardy and Nacho started up top, because I think perhaps a way forward is to try and have a couple of strikers on the pitch to help each other to take when you're playing with the lone striker, there's so much emphasis on one guy, and without Maddison inside as well pulling the strings, you need a bit more ammunition up the top of the pitch. But Brendan likes
again. I go back to Brendan's stubbornness. I mean, we know that when Vardy and Nacho played together at the end of a couple of seasons ago, it saved our season, and then Nacho was top goal scorer. Then what happened come August? Oh, we went back to one up front again. But
I wrote about it after the Gillingham game. I wrote about Ian Nacho. I mean, that's why that game that had so many fond memories of the FA Cup run 2 years previously, because free at the back, and that was all necessity because of injuries. They didn't have the wingers. Harvey Barnes got injured. He's got Harvey now, but he's only got one winger, and he wants another one. But at the moment, he hasn't got one, so the side is a bit lopsided. All the width comes down the left, and poor old Castaña's having to do the work of two people down the right. I wonder whether it's. I know the complicated thing is he hasn't got Ricardo Pereira or James Justin, so he's lacking fullbacks as well to play with a wing-back system. But at least it gave him the opportunity to get Kelechi and Vardy on, and they do combine quite well, because Kelechi isn't a number 9. He's not an out-and-out striker. He hasn't got the pace of running behind like Daka and Vardy. He likes to come and drop a little bit short and hold people off and stick his backside out and hold people away, and then play around people. But I think he's better when he's got a foil.
That when he's given a chance. For a big guy, he's got a lovely touch.
Well, we saw it a few times at the weekend, didn't we? Where he just skipped away from somebody and opened his body up and tried to get it on his left foot and have a go. And I'm not saying that he's the answer to Leicester's problems by any stretch of the imagination, but I think he's an option that should have been looked at on a few more occasions than it has been this season.
Yes. Yeah. The other one I wanted to ask about, which I don't necessarily think we need, but goalkeeper. We know, I mean, Casper today is still not having a good time in Nice, but, for me, it was the time for a changing of the guard. It had to happen at some point. And there's this rumour about Dubrovnik. He's being recalled back to Newcastle. He was in the FA Cup squad at the weekend, didn't do very well, and I've seen a couple of Newcastle channels that are absolutely pulling him to pieces. To me, with the goalkeeping situation, and I think given time, the two that we've got at the moment, the main two will be the two to take us forward. But do we need to spend money on a goalkeeper when we're not exactly aflow with money?
I don't think they want to spend money on a goalkeeper at the moment. I think long term, Brendan likes Jacob, the Polish lad that's out on loan at Fleetwood, although he's not getting many games there. He really likes him. Daniel Iveson is an asset. He's somebody that if they could move on and get a reasonable amount of money for him. He's a good goalkeeper, young goalkeeper. Whether they decide to bring another goalkeeper on loan for now to compete with Danny, I would be surprised. If I'm honest, I think there's areas of the pitch that are more of a priority at the moment in this window. Certainly the fullback situation with the long-term injuries to Ricardo Pereira and James Justin and Ryan Bertrand, who we've completely forgotten about. I mean, it's just whether we ever see him again, I don't know. Leicester Citys out of contract. He's got 6 months left to go. So I think that he desperately doesn't want to keep playing Luke Thomas all the time, burning the lad out. He's only young. He's only 20. So they need some support there. And centre-back is absolutely an area that has to... If he doesn't have any faith in Söyüncü or Vestergaard to play in the Premier League, then he desperately needs to bring in a centre-back that it will provide some cover for... Because he's only got Fars and Amati now. And then Evans could be back next month at some stage. But, there's always those little question marks about Johnny, whether he can sustain a run of games without picking up another knock.
Well, I was actually going to ask about that, because going on to players, when we've talked about Söyüncü, don't want to talk about Tielemans because it's all we ever seem to do. We've mentioned James Maddison, who I don't think will go this window, will he? I don't think he'll stay with. I mean, he's injured at the moment anyway. But Johnny Evans. Now, I like Johnny Evans. I can remember his first game. I was behind the goal when he played his first game, and I'm like, what the hell have we bought this guy for? But what an investment he's been over the years. But why was the talk about us offering a new contract to somebody that's in his mid-30s, that as soon as he walks out onto the pitch within 10 minutes, he's injured and has to come off again? Then he's out for 4 or 5, let's say 2 or 3 months he's out for. And that's not his fault. He's just of an age where I know if I cut my finger now, it takes 4 or 5 times as long to mend as it did when I was 19, 20. It's, that's the way life is. But surely, unless we're going to offer him a, pay as you play sort of deal, I just think that money could be spent elsewhere.
Yeah, possibly. But I think, he is the club captain. He is a big influence in the dressing room. And they lost so many leaders, when Wes Morgan retired, when Fuchs went to America, Casper now gone. They lost a lot of leaders in that dressing room who they did manage themselves very well. That little core of the player management group. Tielemans was part of that. And it used to be Morgan, Tielemans, Schmeichel and Vardy that did a lot of the policing of that dressing room, and a lot of those characters have moved on now. Those big characters, so I think they want to keep Johnny for his experience to help the younger lad. I mean, we've got to remember Fars is 24 and he's just come to the Premier League. He needs a bit of guidance. He's been fantastic to start with. I know he had a terrible evening at Anfield, but he's been a great signing so far. Fingers crossed that he keeps going in the same vein and keeps improving.
Yeah.
Amati, obviously he's got a ricket in him. We all know that. He can give the ball away in really daft areas and stuff like that. So I think they just want Johnny, if they can get him fit, just to be that calm, cool head that can pull people around. Because we've seen Söyüncü was a better player when he was playing alongside Evans. I actually liked him. Söyüncü, I actually liked him when he was partnering with Fofana. I thought until Fofana did his leg in that final pre-season game last year, I thought those two looked sensational in pre-season together. So dynamic, so aggressive, fast, committed. I thought they looked a really good pairing, but it's not to be now.
It isn't, and I just if we need him around the dressing room, then let's get him doing his coaching badges or something like that. I just think he's not going to be on a cheap wage, and I just think we could probably bring somebody in, but we'll see with that one. I think we've said Maddison's not going to go in this summer, but he's going to go eventually, isn't he? Possibly in the summer.
I think he will. I think he will, because as I said, he's the asset that is the most bankable one at the moment. He's the hot ticket. He'll be a massive loss, but if that money then is reinvested in 3 or 4 new players that can come in and just strengthen that squad, cover for the players that are moving on as well, then it might be. I mean, they shouldn't be afraid to do it because they've done it before. They've lost key players, but they've managed to always fill the gaps. And they might have to do it again where there is another James Maddison, though. Who knows? I mean, he's going to be a big hole in the squad when he does move on. But he's of that level now. He's developed so much at Leicester that over the last 18 months in particular, he looks like he should be playing on a European stage on a consistent level. And at the moment, Leicester can't provide that for him.
No. And he left that he'd signed a new contract so that we would at least get some money for him, which was why we could hold out for the 80. Do you think James would do that? I mean, Tielemans isn't doing that, and we're probably going to lose him for hardly anything. Do you think James is the sort of player that will say, yeah, look, I want to leave, but I don't want you to lose out on me?
It's a difficult situation for him, really, because, if he did that and it might increase his value to like 100 million, and the way, I mean, if Grealish is worth that, then Maddison's figures over the last 18 months have dwarfed that of Jack Grealish. So I can understand why Leicester would increase that. It would be nice if that was the case, and I'm sure people would still pay that money for him because he's that sort of talent. He can do a bit of everything now. It would be nice if he did that. I know Yuri didn't want to do that. Harry gets a lot of stick from some Leicester fans, but he did do that. He did sign the new contract, knowing that Man United were in for him in the previous window, knowing that he was interested in wanting to go to Man United. But he signed the contract. Obviously, he benefited from it financially for a year, but it also protected Leicester as well in terms of their investment in him, and they were able to get that record fee for him, and that facilitated a number of new signings that then came in, and in hindsight, it was Fofana coming in, that's a big signing for him as well. They were brave bringing Fofana in. That was a bit of a risk for the money they paid for him, the 30 odd million for him, and then then that's worked out fine as well because they got 70 million for him. So they have done well in the transfer market in previously, but the last few have been disappointing. And as I said to you earlier with the analogy about the car, it just seems like there's not a lot left in the tank. They're trying to catch up with the rest now, and they can't. They're getting pulled back into the pack.
Yeah. I mean, Matty there, he's a Newcastle fan, regular in the channel. Good evening, Matty. I think we sort of answered your questions there. How much would it cost for him on Newcastle? Seriously interested, because every time I see Eddie Howe, he's sort of saying, we're not going to really spend that much in January. But they've been linked with both Tielemans and Maddison. But they're more likely to get him, I think, like we've just said, in the summer, I think, aren't they?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody's going to come in. I mean, this is the thing about Yuri. It's been widely known that he wasn't going to sign this contract, or he's stalling to sign the contract for, I think, the last 4, possibly even 5 windows. Yet nobody's come in for him. If he wants one of these big 6 sides to come in for him, because I think he wants to stay in the Premier League if he can. That's obviously where the money is as well. He wants Champions League, European football on a regular basis every year. But nobody's come in for him before. Now, I think I've mentioned, I don't know if I've mentioned it on your show before, one of the reasons, my theory why they haven't come in for him, was probably Leicester's asking price was pretty similar to what they paid for him, if not more. And that might have put a few sides off. But also, I think that they look at him, and he's a wonderful footballer. He's a conduit. And what I give him credit for as well is, like we've talked about injuries, he's very rarely injured. He plays game after game after game. I mean, he'll be in the side tomorrow. He was out there at Gillingham the weekend. He won't be rested. So he can keep going. And when he's on form, as we've seen, everything goes through him to the extent where when they played Roma in the Conference League semi-finals, both legs, Pellegrini did such a big number on him. As soon as Leicester had the ball, Pellegrini sat on him, nullified him. The ball couldn't go to Tielemans. As soon as Roma won it back, he was running past Tielemans. And this is the area that I think is a little bit short of. I always say players reach a certain level because there might be something missing from the game. And it's that aggressiveness, that athleticism, that physicality that I think he's missing a little bit from Yuri's game. lovely guy, excellent footballer, one of the best midfielders I've seen in recent years, pulling on a blue shirt for Leicester. But you know, and that goal he scored a goal like that in the FA Cup final. But there's something just missing from his game that perhaps the big six are looking at and going, is it that really going to be 30, 40 million? But now, obviously, 6 months left on his contract, they might wait and have a look at him in the summer and pick him up on a free. Little different. And it's not so much of a risk then. It's not much of a challenge. And, you know, but I look at some of the sides that he's been linked with Arsenal. What do you get in that Arsenal midfield at the moment? I know. He was linked with Liverpool, but I couldn't see him in that Liverpool lineup either. I mean, he might be at the moment.
You've got to say, and I said Newcastle. Yeah, I said, like, who would be dropped to accommodate him? And is Yuri going to want to do a Jack Grealish and go to a club and just play a bit part? You know, I mean, you know, £100 million for Jack Grealish, and they can afford not to have him starting every week. Or
well, that's the reality. Chris, it's the reality of playing. You're not going to play every game. I mean, Pep rotates his side all the time because he's got the luxury of that he has got 25, 26 top quality international players to pick from. You know, it's not like Leicester where you know they've probably got a starting 11, and then the rest are just trying to come in and do their best. They're not at the same level. So the reality is, if Yuri went to one of those sides, he wouldn't be playing the number of games that he's playing. But Leicester, he plays every week pretty much for Leicester, unless there's some sort of issue or a tactical switch like we saw when Didi and Samari partnered each other recently. So, you know, but I think Newcastle are more interested in Maddison than they are. Newcastle are very interested in Maddison, and we came in with 2 bids in the summer for him. Neither were anywhere near what Leicester would take for him. So, yeah, I mean, they have spent a lot of money. They've got to be a little bit cute about FFP as well. In the last year alone, I think they've got a net spend of 210 million. They've spent 300 million in the same period that Brendan's been in charge at Leicester. So they've spent a lot of money, and there's other clubs as well that have done the same. Villa and West Ham, they've invested heavily in their squads. Be interested when all the club accounts start coming out in a few weeks' time.
Oh, yes, yeah. A lot of people asking about investors and the ground. We'll come to that later on, so I'm not ignoring you. But I want to get on to sort of players that we could possibly be linked with. And it's not the huge list that it normally is, but I suggested this the other day that, and I don't think it's going to happen because apparently it's nearly done deal for him to go to Aston Villa. I don't know how true this is, but Harry Maguire, if he's not, you know, if Man United are looking at possibly letting him go, it would be. I'd love to see him back at Leicester.
Yeah, he'd be too rich now for Leicester, I think, at this moment in time. You know, with the constraints that I've mentioned, I would be very surprised. I've not heard Harry's name mentioned around the club at this moment. So I think they would be looking for a younger, up and coming centre backs that they can work with and develop, like they have done with Fofana, like Fars, you know, who's still got plenty of years ahead of him. I think that's probably more the range that they will be looking for, and somebody that's going to come in and it's going to be a little bit cheaper than that.
Yeah. Right, let's start with the guy that apparently we were after before the World Cup, but came to prominence in the World Cup. And you're going to have to forgive my pronunciation, because if you remember me, I can't. I anything past Smith and Jones, and I struggle. But Azzedine Ouani, Ange's player, the guy from Morocco. At one point, we seemed to be like, it was us, it was done, we'd put an offer in, and suddenly now we seem to again, like in that car that you were mentioning, falling behind. Is that happen? And is he
not that I'm aware of. I mean, it's obviously. I mean, I think they're how much they're talking, 20 million for him. I'd be very surprised if
20 to 27, I think.
Yeah, again, that might be something in the summer that they would look at. I mean, the priorities at the moment are to get those three in that they needed: the left back, the centre back, and the right winger, a centre midfield player. Unless they lost the Tielemans or a Maddison in this window, which I don't think they will, then I can't really see that. But it's more I mean, the one that, as I mentioned earlier, the one concrete one, absolutely, is Victor Christiansen at Copenhagen, the young 20-year-old left back. They're pushing for that.
I mean, he's only young, but yeah. So I was saying,
I mean,
he's only young, but he's played 72 times for the team. That to me looks. I'd love to get him.
Yeah, he is a talent. He's highly rated in Denmark. I mean, sources close to Copenhagen have told me that absolutely would they not sell him for 8 million quid, by the way. They'd want a lot more for him than that. But it's something that could be doable. Yeah. But there's no agreement struck yet. And he will be one of a few options they will be looking at for that position at this moment. But he's the one that's come to the fore at the moment. So we'll have to watch the space with him. I was told a week ago that they were making progress in terms of the left back. And obviously then the Christiansen link came out. I think this is the next day that the Christiansen link came out, which was confirmed. So, you know, they are in talks and they have been holding discussions with him. So, yeah, it'd be nice if they could get that one done. Again, though, 20 years old, obviously a talent, but he's got to come in and he's got to adjust. And Brendan wants players that are ready to come in and start. So, you know, he would be thrown straight in.
It would, and that's the risk. I mean, it worked with Fofana. I mean, he was thrown in, and it was like he'd played here all his life. But then, like you say, Tomori needed a season to settle in. But can we afford to be that choosy? You know, I mean, we've got to take a risk, haven't we? We are in that risk area.
Yeah, yes, they have to. You're right. They can't afford to be that choosy because the market isn't awash with players that you can just really, you know, readily pick up at the moment. As I've said, you know, a lot of clubs don't want to part with their key assets halfway through the campaign. So then you're looking at players that who haven't played much or out of favour, or, you know, you're taking a risk on somebody who's coming back from injury, like Madueke at PSV. You know, he's had an injury. I think he's only played 3 games. All the substitutes this season because he's had an injury that's kept him out. I know the lad at Stoke, the centre back there, he's just come back from an ACL. You know, there's a lot of close links with Leicester there, and I know they want to bring in a young centre back. So, you know, we'll have to see what happens on that one. But, you know, you are taking a risk.
Yeah, and I was going to come on to Sutai. You're doing good links for me here, Rob. Harry Suter at Stoke. English, he knows the English game. Again, a prospect. Okay, the injury, but, you know, let's face it, if you're injured, you're fitting well at Leicester at the moment. But could he be the answer at centre-back, do you think? Or are there other players we're looking at for that position?
Again, it's a leap of faith. To be honest, the centre-back position isn't one that I've heard a lot of noise over. Originally, when we were at we were having a chat with Brendan, and Brendan said, look, I'd like to bring a left-back in and a right winger. And it was only later than when it was put to him, I said, well, hang on a second, you're really short at centre-back as well. And he went, yeah, I'd like to do that as well. But I got the impression the key positions he wanted to improve were left-back and right wing. I mean, that right wing position's been the perennial problem. It's been a poison chalice since Riyad Mahrez left. And they've tried so many different characters. I mean, Gazelle, Under, Diabate, you know, they've tried lots of different players in that role. None of them have really...
Diabate. Scourge of Peterborough.
Well, there's a classic example. They did him in a January. I can remember the day that was confirmed to me. We were at Fleetwood. I think it was the FA Cup game at Fleetwood, and I think somebody said to me that Diabate's coming in. This lad, Fassini Diabate, coming in. So, well, I thought, okay, he must be a talent if they've spotted him, but it didn't really work out, did it, at all? So, you know, it has been difficult. I mean, the best solution that Brendan's come up with, and he's talking about he wants a winger with real pace now. So he's got pace on both flanks. Well, previously, he always said that he prefers one out-and-out winger on one side and an inverted midfield player on the other, which he's got in Maddison. And Maddison's been the best. I know he wants to play him more centrally, but Maddison's been the best solution off that rise. I mean, his second choice is Pratt. Obviously, he's still injured with a rib problem, still in a bit of pain. And then his third choice now is Perez. His first signing when he come in, but you know, he's way down the pecking order now. He's having to play at the moment because of all the injuries, but he didn't play very well at Gillingham.
Yeah. he seems to. I always feel with Perez that there's a good player in there, but we just don't see him. It seems like twice a season, maybe.
Yeah, it was same with Newcastle. He's hot and cold. That was exactly what I was told at the time when I knew that Leicester were trying to sign him from Newcastle. I was told by colleagues that he blows hot and cold. He's not like a consistent performer. He'll have hot sprees where he's like really good for 4 or 5 games, then he'll go quiet for a while. They always said as well he's better as like a second striker 10 than he is playing wide, but Brendan's always tempted to play him wide. Enigmatic. Yeah, that's the word.
And I mean, I did say to the Newcastle, that's the word. That's one of the words. I did actually say, and there's a message to Eddie Howe that, if you do come in and you really are serious about James Maddison, whatever offer you make us, you've got to take Perez back as well. There we go. That's the deal for you.
Yeah, well, he'll be going one of those that's out of contract. And I don't think I've not heard anything about him being offered a new contract.
No. I think we're going to cut our losses with that one. Like you said, how long does it take a club to fill a position? And we seem to have been trying to replace Mahrez. Well, we've obviously, since Mahrez left, unsuccessfully. We've tried different people here and there. Lookman, I think, was probably the closest we were going to get, and I think will always be, known as the one that probably got away. But I mean, how many seasons has it been now? What? Surely that we've got to have people in mind we can get to fill that position.
Well, Mahrez was 2018, wasn't he? He eventually left. So, it's been 4 seasons they've been trying to fill that void. But they're so specific about what they want. They want a left-footed right winger like Mahrez, and I tried that with somebody like that. That's somebody that can cut inside and get a shot off, but it can also go on the outside and deliver a bit of quality. So they've got very specific wants for this player, and I just don't think that there is that in the market. Certainly not for the money that Leicester would be looking to spend. Well, yeah. I mean, where they go from here? I mean, I was told that to do a right winger, it would be an expensive one in this window.
Let's be. I never thought I'd say this, but and I love the guy to bits, but Mark Albrighton. I mean, we've got in there. He's vice captain. Yes, he's a little bit older, but when he's come on the last couple of games, it's almost like he has given Vardy that extra, kick up the backside as well. Because as soon as he came on, I think what game it was now, probably Fulham. He came on against Fulham and he had to because of the injury, but suddenly balls were being crossed in, and I mean that shot he had, I think against. Was it a cross? Was it a shot? It was one of those. We'll never know. But I don't think he's being used enough, and he could maybe be a short-term answer in that position.
Well, yeah. I mean, he'll never let you down. He'll always give his all. You get 100% commitment from him. I know Vardy has always loved playing with him because he knows when the ball's coming in. Because as soon as Albrighton gets the ball, he gets it out of his feet and he whips it in. So Vardy knows he can make his run across the defender to the near post or drift off the back of him. He knows the ball's coming in. Whereas previously under some other right wingers, that they would take a touch, they would cut back again. So Vardy's making his run and then having to come out and go back in and come out. So he loves playing with Mark, but obviously old father time, Mark's getting on as well now. I thought it was a really interesting part of the Gillingham game, the tactic that Brendan employed with McAteer. Every time Albrighton got the ball at right wing back, he bent it into the far post. And McAteer made that break, and a lot of the time he got himself into good positions, but there wasn't the quality at the end. Eventually there was, although it was Tielemans' ball in from the right for the goal. So obviously it was a deliberate tactic they employed there to play that diagonal, and that's what you get from Mark. But what you don't get, unfortunately, from Mark down his career is the goals ratio, the tally. I mean, Brendan's always talked about Harvey Barnes and Maddison getting their numbers up. and all the forward players have to get their numbers up, goals and assists. Now, that's never been Mark's game, has it, really, to get in the box and score goals? You know, he likes to stay wide and deliver the ball. He would have been perfect if they had a big number 9, you know, so a big 9 that gets his head on everything. But obviously they don't play that way. They don't have that sort of character in the side. But imagine Steve Howard loved all Brighton.
Yeah, so if only we had somebody that could sort of head the ball in from a good cross. Like, I don't know, if we had an Iheanacho possibly sat on the bench twiddling his thumbs. Did I say that out loud? I think talking about the youngsters there, and let's see more of the youngsters. I thought McAteer and Brunt had I know you could argue whether it was only the 92nd team in the football pyramid we were playing. I thought they had fantastic games. Brunt, for every time he got that ball, all he wanted to do was pump it up into the box.
Yeah, I mean, they both looked a bit nervous to start with, understandably so. But I tell you what, I don't think people have given them enough credit for the weekend, because that was a real banana skin. There was all the ingredients there for a cup shock. You know, the swirling wind. I was on the press bench, and at one stage, the wind gust from the right, and somebody's gloves went flying down the press bench, and there was a massive gust from the left, and everybody's team sheets went flying down there again. So imagine what it was like out on the pitch. I know what the fans were like behind the stands. You know, it was wet, it was cold. They were nothing to lose. They had nothing to lose at all. They got their new owner being paraded in front of the pitch. So there's a positive vibe about the place after all the problems they've had in previous years. And and they're a well-organised side under Neil Harris. They don't score any goals. That's the big problem. But they don't get beat by a lot either. So I thought that was always going to be a really tricky one, and they had to be really professional. And I think they were patient as well. I mean, in fact, Scott Minto, the former Chelsea player, was sat near me on the press bench, and he said to me at half time, he said, "I'm impressed how patient Leicester have been here. You know, they're not panicking. They're not just lumping the ball in the box. They're trying to draw them out, because that is the deepest of deep blocks, wasn't it? There's like 9 across the penalty box at most of the game. And it opened up in the second half that Leicester started to get some more joy. But you had to be patient. You had to be professional to see that through. I mean, 9 Premier League clubs went out in the third round, but Leicester aren't one of them. So I thought they did decent.
Like you say, I was so nervous going into that, because it would have been, that would have been the story of the weekend had we gone out. And let's be honest with you, we know what that is like at Leicester. But yeah, when we brought the kids in last FA Cup against Watford, they played really well. Then we had to, because of the COVID. Is there anybody in that youngster that could do the right wing role that's coming through?
They don't really play an out-and-out winger in the under-23s from what I've seen. And so I don't know. I mean, whether Brendan would want to do that and keep dipping into the under. I know Will Alves is one that they really, really like, because he's such a talent. He really is a talent. So unfortunate what happened against Wolves. A horrendous tackle from a 16-year-old kid who, hopefully he learned from that as well. But, that doesn't help Will, because he's now out for the rest of the season with an ACL. Just when he was starting to get, involved, he would have been probably involved on Saturday. Played in the Caribou Cup. He probably would have been in that squad as well. But in terms of an answer for the right wing, I've not seen one really outstanding talent that you think, right, okay, they do. I mean, they do play a lot with wing backs in the under 23s, and Casey's been playing as one of those wing backs. So that's where they tend to get their width. But no, I think they'd have to bring somebody in.
Yeah. James, on the case, and we'll come to one or two other questions. But James said, so how many incoming players do you expect for January?
Not 3. 3, yeah. 3 is what they want to do. At least 3. So the left back, the centre back, and the right winger. That's what they will want to do. They think that would be enough to tide them over until some of the players start returning from injury. They start to have a bit of a cleaner bill of health at the club. Going into a really, really busy end of the season, the games are going to come thick and fast, and that's that's what they need. I mean, yeah, there's a few. I mean, as I said, KDH could be back in training Friday. Pratt's going to be a little bit longer with his side. He's still getting a bit of pain from his ribs.
Is he going in January?
Is what? Sorry?
Is Pratt going? I mean, I know he's injured, but the Torino chairman or chief executive was allegedly over in London.
Well, if he goes, they've got to replace him, so that'll be another position to have to fill. And as I said, it's not the best window to do that. But Dennis has been playing a bit more this season than previously. I know he was very frustrated. I like him as a player. I think he's quite a dynamic.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's quite a dynamic midfielder. Again, you want to see more of a goal threat from him, especially if he's playing further up the field, which he has been, whilst James has been injured until he got that side issue, which is a bit of a worry. But no, I don't think they can't let a lot of players go without having replacements for them in, because it's about strengthening your squad, not weakening it in this window. I mean, that's the last thing they want to do is weaken the window, weaken their squad in this window. They'd really be in trouble then.
Yeah. Michael, he said, why did they have to sell another player? They've still got 5 million left from the Fofana sale. Have we got 55 million left though? Because I'm sure we probably have to pay Etienne a bit of an amount.
Yeah, there's a sell on. It's quite a substantial one as well. But obviously, if they want to do the business they think they need to do next summer, the model, as I said, has always been to sell one asset and then reinvest that money. I personally don't think that sort of number would be enough to fill all the positions in the squad that are going to be available come the end of this season when those contracts are up. As I said, 2 possibly might stay, 5 might go. They might try and sell a few more on. So it would be an interesting one. But I think that probably and as well, James Maddison is hot prospect at the moment. There'll be a lot of interest in him. It would be an interesting one in the summer.
A couple of people have been asked, and from the final whistle, and we've got a bit of a delay here, so I do apologise if I'm talking over you. Does Rob feel the club needs investors?
Well, yeah, they could do with it, but they've still got the same problem with FFP. You can't just throw money at it. You've got to grow your revenue. I mean, I don't think they'd have any worries with the Premier League FFP regulations. I mean, the way Everton and some of the other clubs have gone about it over the last few years. I mean, Leicester estimated that COVID cost them 50 million. I think Everton were estimating that COVID cost them 130 million or something like that because of the amount of money they spent. So I'm not too worried about the Premier League's FFP. I don't think the club are too worried about the Premier League FFP. As I said, it was the UEFA one that was a bit of a concern for them, just because they want to be competing on that level. But as I said, they're miles away right now. This is a season of consolidation. This is a season of just making sure you're putting all your bits in the right place at the moment, and slowly building again. Have a good another transfer window in the summer, and then see what you can challenge for it next season. But they've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah. James said, interested to hear your thoughts on the planned extension. Most City fans he knows are really fearful with our current financial state and can't see them selling an extra 10,000 seats a week. We're not. When you say financial state, we're not in the position where we've got to worry about going out of business, are we?
No, no. But obviously they've posted debts. They've over 103 million that is allowable over the last 3 years. They're taking out loans to free up cash based on the sale of Fofana. They're not in financial trouble. I mean, the next accounts are coming out, not too far in the distance, and they won't probably make for pretty reading. Don't be expecting a profit, that's for sure. But I think
that will be
there'll be quite a big loss. there'll be a big loss in the next one. But that project is what I mentioned earlier about trying to increase the club's revenue stream. You know, that mean it's not just the stadium, the 10,000 extra seats. That won't make a massive amount of money. Gate receipts don't make a lot of money in the Premier League. It's the TV royalties. But if you've got hotel and an arena, and you've got all the other facility, the retail and all that, you are growing your revenue streams. Then what they really want to do is grow their revenue streams from abroad, which is what the big six are brilliant at. You know, they've got massive fan bases around the world, and Leicester are working hard to close that gap. They've been doing a lot of projects. I know a lot of the legends go abroad to try and do things out there and raise awareness of Leicester City. Obviously, the title success of 2016 helped that. But, you know, they've got a long way to go to catch the big six. They're a moving target because they're growing as well. They're, you know, Liverpool. I mean, how can you compete with Liverpool and Man United in terms of their global reach? You can't. But even like Chelsea have got a big one. Arsenal have got a massive one as well, global reach. I mein, obviously, the Athletic is originally American company, now been bought by the New York Times, got subscribers all around the world. So, you know, we see the figures in terms of like the interest in those big six, especially Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal. You know, they are huge. But it's interesting that the person asked about the 10,000 seats and doubting whether they would fill those seats, because I think for a long time, I mean, it was been muted a long time about extending the stadium and increasing the capacity. And I think Vichai needed convincing that the fans would come out. You know, Leicester isn't the biggest city in the world, but they've got a very loyal fan base. One club city. They do come out, and you know, vast majority of people support Leicester in Leicester, don't they? And in the county, but it's not the most populous area as well. So, yeah, it all depends on the team on the pitch, doesn't it? At the end of the day, if the team's performing and winning, fans will always come out. And I think that's why they decided to do it. But they want to get all that work done as well around there, just for the long-term future for the club.
Well, it is, and as somebody said just then, what Gray said, what about the training ground? Shouldn't we build a team first? I mean, there's the old film saying, isn't there? If you build it, they will come. But it's sort of, you know, chicken egg situation, isn't it? You know, it's you know, I'm sure there's a lot of players that we talk to that are absolutely blown away by our training facilities.
Beaver Drive just wasn't fit for purpose anymore. It wasn't big enough. You know, you had, you know, people could watch the training from over the fence. You know, I mean, at Seagrave, it's enormous. I mean, I obviously I go there on a regular basis for the press conferences, and I've had a tour of the place, and it's just incredible. It is an astonishing place. And at the time when they were doing that project, you know, Leicester were challenging the big six. They were in the, you know, really going for it. And, you know, they were very prudent as well in their transfer market and having success there as well. And they were unsettling or disrupting, as Brendan says, the big six. But if you look at the big six, they've all got state-of-the-art training grounds. They've all got these incredible facilities as well. And it does help recruit talent, because they go there, that's their office. They're there 5 days of the week. You know, it's only on a Saturday that normally they're playing at King Power or wherever. You know, so that is their base. That's where they do all their work. So it has to be pristine. But now I can understand why fans are saying, you know, they would rather spend money on the transfers, but that's an investment in the future in the training ground. If you just throw money at players, you know, obviously half the money goes out the game with agents' fees, goes out the game to the other clubs. So, you know, it's you're throwing money away really. The talent's got to be top to come in and make a big difference.
Yeah. Two questions here from JB, and I've not seen many links with this guy. Orkun Koku from Feyenoord.
Yeah, no, I've not heard him mentioned in this window. In the summer, I mean, he's probably on their radar. I mean, They have networks across Europe. I mean, people always ask me why they don't sign players from South America. Now, I'm sure they've got scouts in South America, but it is a bit of a mystery.
Yeah.
But they have got their preferred markets. France is a big one. Belgium, obviously, is a big one. Holland.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we haven't had too many Dutchmen over for a while, so it's they've got their markets, and we'll see how we go. And what was the second part of the question?
Would top sell?
Would top sell? Well, we did have a few concerns whether we thought the club was up for sale at one stage. I did a few inquiries. I was told absolutely not. He's fully committed. He sees it as part of his dad's legacy to continue building Leicester for the future. And they are genuinely attached to the community. They love the fact that they play a role in and they've brought success to Leicester, and they're very proud of that as well. So, no, I think the biggest thing about Top is his father's legacy. He wants to see Leicester there challenging for European football, Champions League football, if possible. That's his dream. That's his vision, and he's fully committed now. Obviously, they're going to be financially.
Let's be honest, we always say, don't we? Any player is available at any. If the price is right, and I guess if somebody comes in with a ridiculous offer, it's always going to be looked at anywhere. And it's a he's like a difficult question, JB. So a lot of Leicester fans want Top out. For me, it's harsh. I don't think there's a difference between wanting Rodgers out and wanting Top out, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've always said, having these owners has been a bit like winning the lottery for Leicester. When you look at how many clubs have had terrible owners, they have not cherished the club's heritage, they have not cherished the traditions, they've not looked after the supporters, they haven't invested in not only in the team and the stadium, the infrastructure, but all the charitable work that they've done. For the foundation, the Vichai Foundation, and all that. People from across the county benefit from that. The hospitals and the children's ward and stuff like that. I mean, they're incredible owners. I know it's frustrating at the moment, and fans, but who do they want to come in?
Yes.
Aren't you bet the devil with Top as well? Because look, okay, he's going through a tricky time as well. He's not long lost his father. He's having to step up. Not only as chairman of Leicester City, but chairman of King Power. He's got a lot on his plate to deal with. Then COVID comes along, as it decimates some of his business and his personal wealth. But that's not the issue. It's the FFP rules that have been the issue. So it's not like Top's run out of cash. He's good for it, if you know what I mean, if he needed to. But he would invest. But no, I think that's really harsh on Top. I understand some fans don't want Brendan. I get it. That's their prerogative. That's football fans. Yeah. They've seen a decline over the last season and a bit. That's worrying them, and they're genuinely worried. And they're looking at the table and some of the results this season. Yeah, they've got a reason to be worried. I mean, they go to Forest and they lose, as I said. Then Forest are above them, and then suddenly you saw how they were early in the season, and they looked odds on. So it is a worry, but I still think the club's properly run. Susan's an excellent CEO. They won't risk the future of the club. That's why they've put the brakes on a little bit as well, just to take stock really. And then hopefully they can get going again. Yeah.
And I mean, I know it's very, very easy to sort of say, "Oh, I can remember back in the day," but I'm sure there was times when when the bottom reaches of the second tier with the likes of Craig Levine and Ian Holloway that we would have taken being 13th in the Premier League. And straight up now, do you think there is a chance we are in a relegation battle, but we've been lucky so far that every time we've had a bad result, everybody else underneath us has had a bad result. We can't rely on that, for our Premier League future. We're not going to go down though, are we?
No, No, I don't think so. I mean, I think they need to get going, though. I mean, you can't rest on your laurels. You can't get complacent.
No.
I mean, I've seen sides that have, had over 40 points get relegated in Premier League history. So, that you've got to have your eye on the ball, and you've got to be under no illusion. This is going to be very, very difficult season. It is. I can't see them going on an 8-game winning streak and firing up the tail and then starting knocking on the door of Europe this season. Where they are. I mean, they haven't beaten a side in the top 12 all season, so that shows you where they are in the table. So where they are is actually where they're supposed to be at the moment. But I just hope they get the injuries sorted. I mean, honestly, if you had Ricardo Pereira and James Justin back, Johnny Evans alongside Farr, you had Maddison, KDH playing, Pratt as a backup. Samari, it's gone ahead in Ndidi because Ndidi's form's been terrible. Samari being the holding midfield. Daka's come back from his injury. Thankfully, that wasn't a serious one. Then you've got a side that you think, well, it's comfortably safe in the division, but the injuries keep crippling them year after year, and I think that's a lot to do with the nature of the last few seasons.
Yes, yeah. Like you say, it is Leicester. It is a roller coaster ride, and it always will be. We can't get away from that. You know what you got into when you signed up. Let's be honest. So, do you think we'll get final question? If you've got to put your money on one person coming in, and I know this is a horrible question, but who do you think the first signing, if we make a signing, will be?
Christensen, I think.
Really?
Yeah, if they can do the deal. They're talking to Copenhagen. I'm sure they would have spoken to his representatives about to gauge whether he's interested in coming as well. Because I understand they won't be the only club in for him. He is highly rated. He's one that can develop and grow as well. So that would probably be the one I would, unless there's one that comes out of left field. Let's be honest, the way Leicester operates, they are quite secretive. We didn't really know a lot about Fars until suddenly, he was nearly signed. So it is one to watch. But I think at the moment the closest they are is to a left back, and I believe that'd be Christensen. But they've still got work to do on that one.
Yeah. Rob, as always, sir, thank you so very much for coming on.
Chris.
A safe journey for Newcastle tomorrow. I'm not looking forward to it. I've got to be honest with you. I'll be watching it like I used to watch Doctor Who as a kid from behind the sofa. Just sticking my head out every now and again.
It would be nice to go up there with Maddison, wouldn't it? In form and fit, and some of the other lads as well. And then you think they've got a great chance of doing something there, because I've been to Newcastle so many times. And I know it's a feel-good factor about there now, but quite often when you go up there and if you get the fans turned in the first 15, 20 minutes, they don't half turn at Newcastle. I've experienced it over the years. But no, the feel-good factor's back up there now, which is going to be a bit of a challenge for Leicester tomorrow.
And I think the worst thing that could have happened for us was Sheffield Wednesday beating them.
Well, that's it. The only chance of silverware now Yeah, so the only chance of silverware now is the Caribou. They're going to go all in tomorrow night. So, but you never know. Leicester could pull off the stuff.
But then again, there's always the case that they're trying too hard. So we will see. What we love about football, you can always dream. Rob, thanks so much for coming on. As always, really appreciate it. And take care. And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you all. See you soon.
Cheers, Rob. Take care, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Forget, guys, if you're not subscribed to The Athletic yet, it's £1 a month, I think, for the first 6 months. And then I think it goes up to £7.99, but there's always deals on. It is a fantastic read. Forget all these, now news and all that sort of thing. They are the ones that have the really, really, really good links. And you can always interact with Rob straight after the match as well. There's always a question and answer stream open for you to do that. We're no wiser, really. That's no disrespect to Rob. I just think that's Leicester. We do like to play our cards close to our chest. But that is Leicester City for you. But what have we got coming up next?
Coming up next on Leicester Till I Die TV.
Yeah, and I apologise. I don't know how it's coming across to you guys at your end. I've got a few internet connection problems here. The weather's not so good, and I keep saying bad connection. So hopefully it's come across okay. But we're back tomorrow. Hopefully, fingers crossed, 7:30 for the watch along for the quarter-final of the Caribou Cup. Off up to Newcastle. Fingers crossed. I think it is going to have to be a big fingers crossed for that one. But who knows? It's what dreams are made of, isn't it? And I just want to say a big thank you to everybody. You can see it in the chat there. Last year on our podcast, we had 42,172 downloads. I mean, my brain just does not commute that. We're on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, all the main, a lot of the non-main ones as well, if you like, no disrespect to them, podcast platforms. I mean, 42,172, totally and utterly unbelievable. Unbelievable. Thank you to everybody. So if you've been watching, thank you very much. Thank you to everybody who was in the chat and all your comments. We obviously didn't have time to get through them all. Hope we covered most of the topics you were looking at. And if you've been listening on the podcast, because it'll be up in the podcast in a few minutes, part of 42,000, thank you so very much for lending me your ears. You can have them back now. I will see you tomorrow at 7:30 for the 8 o'clock kickoff. Take care, guys. Thanks very much. If you're new, please subscribe to the channel, as it says at the bottom there. It does help us a load. And what helps us as well is if you smash the likes. Please do that. So, yeah, I will see you tomorrow at 7:30. Thanks again to Rob. Always a pleasure. And I'll see you tomorrow. Fingers crossed. Come on, you foxes. Keep the faith, guys. Keep the faith. Good night.
That's all, folks.
Thanks for watching Leicester Till I Die. This is Chris saying goodbye and see you next time.
Thanks for watching. These videos are tremendous. You better like them too, or I'll be back.
Leicester Till I Die TV. They think it's all over. It is now.